Hey there, welcome back to another episode of Sustainability in the Sea. I missed you guys as I do between every episode. I am really excited to share that by the time this episode is dropped, me and Alex are actually on a 6-week trip. A couple of that is seeing friends and family, but the other half of that is going to a part of the world that I've never been to before. We're going to Indonesia at first in Lombok, which I've been to Bali before, but then we're going to Malaysia, specifically the island of Borneo, which is the third largest island in the world. So if you want to follow along on that journey, I'm trying to share as much as I can on social media. But before we get into this episode, which I am so excited for you to hear, let me know what you guys want us to talk about on this show. We have the comment feature now. If you're listening on certain platforms, you can just add a comment and share what topics you want us to cover. This is a smaller group than what we see on my TikTok account or on the FutureSwell accounts, and I want to hear from you so that we can adapt this show to be what's most valuable for you. This episode is going to cover a topic that I know is going to be valuable for you. I met Hunter at a brewery in Charleston earlier this year, and we were just talking. He said he was a community organizer, and I said, I'm a community organizer too. And I learned about his story and the ways he has made an impact, and I said, you have to come on our show. Hunter works for Oceana. Oceana is the single largest international advocacy organization working exclusively on ocean conservation. They have been the driving force behind campaign wins you've probably seen in the news, whether it's banning straws or single-use plastic in certain areas or stopping offshore drilling. And they're an organization I've always looked up to. Hunter is a community organizer with them in Florida. He's currently helping organize communities against offshore drilling expansion to protect our irreplaceable ocean ecosystems. And this conversation talks about his experience turning into a community organizer, the skills he had his entire life to be able to take care of the ocean, and now what he does with Oceana. If any of that sounds interesting, please stick around, because Hunter is not just an amazing person in the ocean conservation movement, but also has such a calming, important message to share that I think everyone's going to get a lot from. So thanks for being here. I'm always grateful to those of you that take the time to listen to these longer, in-depth conversations that we host on our show, because I know there's a lot of media out there. And so the fact that you're spending it today with us means a lot. Okay, let's get into it. Welcome back to Sustainability and the Sea. Hi, Hunter. Welcome to Sustainability in the Sea.
Pleasure to be with you. Yeah, excited.
For those listening, me and Hunter met at a brewery in Charleston a few months ago for some ocean organizers to come together and just create relationships. And I talked with him about his story, and I said, oh my gosh, you have to come on the podcast. So I'm really excited to get into it. What kind of hats would you say that you wear in the ocean movement?
Well, I'm a campaigner at heart, and I've worked with Oceana for the last 8 years. And so, I manage some of our field representatives, which are basically campaigners or organizers. So what I love to do and really, sink my teeth in is like, how can we build awesome relationships with people in our communities that matter and that their voices need to be elevated, and like how does that work into strategy to kind of win victories for not only our oceans but the people and communities that rely on them. So but I would say that my job is a little bit of everything, from like comms to lobbying um to advocacy and community organizing and all that stuff. So it's a really kind of generalist role, and that's kind of where we fit in.
Yeah, you do what needs to
Right.
be done.
Yeah. I think if you are around long enough, you kind of learn a bit of everything, so you get pulled in those directions.
Yeah.
But and then on the side too, I live in St. Augustine, Florida, which I love. Work on our own local issues from like land use stuff and stopping bad developments to kind of doing climate change education and just bringing people together on environmental and social stuff in our city.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's all connected. And I also think that, you know, if I could go back, I didn't know that campaigner, community organizer was really an option for me. I was just majoring in marine biology, and now I find myself so much in this community impact space, and it's so fulfilling. And I know I'm here, but let's just take a moment to go back to kind of where you started. Like I know you grew up in Florida, but were you always, what was your initial connection to the ocean? Were you always an ocean person? And how did you find your way into organizing work? Did it come out of an aha moment, or I guess could you share a little bit about your beginnings?
Yeah, sure. Well, I am from Florida, but not all of Florida, as it turns out, is coastal. I actually grew up right in the middle of the peninsula, kind of like south of Orlando, in a really rural, conservative area of Florida.
Yeah.
And and every year we'd go to the beach, like West Coast, East Coast, and whenever we could really and could afford it, we'd go to the beach. And every time I'd go to the beach, I'm like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. It's like whenever I would like hit the bridge and it was like ka-dunk, ka-dunk, ka-dunk of like the way a bridge sounds, I was like, oh, we're almost there. I'm so excited. So I remember like promising to myself, like, okay, one day when I grow up, like I'm gonna live where there's a bridge and I'm gonna live where I'm close to the ocean. So ended up keeping that promise to myself and yeah, so I went to Flagler College in St. Augustine and which is a cool spot, a cool place to live. When I graduated college, it was like right in like the midst of like the recession, the Great Recession. So like jobs were not plentiful and during college and a little bit after is whenever I started kind of getting turned on to kind of like community organizing, environmental stuff, kind of getting engaged in like local fights. So whether it was like, like the St. Johns River getting polluted by a paper mill and like us trying to stop the expansion of a pipeline to dump more effluent into the St. Johns, or if it's like stopping a terrible housing development from like destroying some beautiful woods. Like my friends and I were kind of organizing around that just because like we are drawn to that. I think it's because we had a legitimate like love of the place that we lived and enjoyed it. So whether that's like surfing or fishing in the river, um, or just like all of our time spent out in these places. And yeah, so that was like super a big part of it. And like you always hear like the tagline, like you can't protect it if you don't love it. Like
Yeah,
it's like you hear that and it's true. I
it's
think that's
true.
a big part of it is like it's true. Um, but yeah, so that was kind of like the beginnings. And then one day I was like on my lunch break and I was listening to like public radio and I they were like covering this protest in front of the White House and it was like Dr. James Hansen, who was the director of the Goddard Space Institute for NASA, was essentially getting arrested with 100 other people in front of the White House and resigned as director of the Goddard Space Institute to sound the alarm about the urgency of us needing to take real action on climate change.
Wow.
And his message was to President Obama at the time, like, this is so, so huge. You have to pay attention. And I thought, okay, that's crazy to me. Like someone that's dedicated their life to science and, from a career perspective, worked all the way to the top. He's the director of this incredible space institute for NASA. And to resign when you're at the top to
Make a
make a
statement.
make a statement and to kind of be a warning to the world and to some of us that were listening, to me, that was my aha moment. I was like, okay, I really need to learn about climate change and what this does, and what this means for us. And so that really began kind of like this journey for me, and learning about climate change, learning about how to organize around it. And I could go on and on what that looked like in those early days, but yeah, that was definitely my aha moment, and me really plugging in and tuning in on how to get involved locally and on a bigger level too.
It's also, it's giving me chills actually right now, like to see one person, how one person can cause like a ripple effect to so many others. Like that man has no idea that he maybe was your catalyst.
Yeah,
And I think we get the awesome privilege to interview so many incredible change makers on sustainability in the sea. And it does all start with that foundation of loving the place, and then one, maybe a few moments that shifted them into action for their lives. And
yeah.
I'm kind of like you, where I grew up landlocked. And so the ocean was always special. And because it
Hmm.
was this special place, it always felt like, a place to create memories with my family, or a place where I was always joyful. And that was the foundation for everything else. And when you say you learned about, oh, I got to learn more about climate change, did you feel like you were already, because you had initiated some or got a little bit more involved in your local community issues, that you had people that you could then go ask? Because we get a lot of questions from our audiences about, I just don't know how to get involved. I just don't know who to ask. How do I
Yeah.
start? I care. I clearly know it's an issue. How do I start now? And so back then, how did you start?
Yeah, totally. I think so I don't know for sure, but what I can remember is that that direct action kind of was in partnership with 350.org at the time.
Cool.
And so like I think like every good movement needs a leader, or several great leaders. And for me it was Bill McKibben. And so like getting Bill McKibben's books and then following 350 at that time was like how we got our information, and the way that they organized and engaged the public was like made it really easy to on-ramp. So like first off, you got really good science from them. They kind of broke it down into like ways that we could really understand it. Um, and then they were putting on like actions. And so whether that's like, like going to DC for like a big march and seeing, oh my gosh, this is a real thing. Like we circled the White House, and like there's all these art installations, and there's like all these people that care. Like I didn't know. I was like, because I think it was before like major social media stuff.
Yeah.
Like it was just a different landscape. So like actually seeing real life people, and like granted, I'm from a conservative area, grew up there, and it's like I'd never really I rarely saw people, kind of adults,
Protesting.
protesting. So I was like, wow, this is so amazing. Like we can do this. Um, so yeah, so I think like finding those orgs that you align with, and then, ideally they have pathways to kind of get involved, and that's kind of how we did it. But at the same time, we are kind of rogue too. We were doing our own thing. We had a group called Environmental Youth Council, and so it was like, my friend owned a restaurant. On the day that they were closed, we would like fill up the restaurant and just like have a circle and talk about issues, and just seriously just like spitball ideas. Like, what do you want to do? What should we do? Like, let's do this art installation, or like let's do like a big march over the bridge, um and then like get the mayor to like commit to doing this or that. I don't know. So a lot of it was like now kind of like learning about like there's an art and a science to organizing. It can be different, done different ways, but like there are like tried and true ways of doing it. We are figuring it out on our own, and um kind of just like seeing what stuck, and I don't know.
Those are the
It's
bones, though. Those are literally
Yeah,
the bones of it. Like, get everyone in a room, talk about the
yeah,
issue, make a
yeah,
plan, create like
yeah.
some actions, make sure you have demands. I was reading about how some recent activations on the West Coast, like how it can be really difficult when you have so many people willing to channel and organize for an issue, but you don't have clear demands. like
Yeah.
how it can be a weak point after you have a million, maybe thousands, millions of people on one
Yeah.
issue, but you got to have a set outcome you're looking for.
Yeah.
And it's awesome to hear that even in those early days, you were like, okay, what's the one demand we want of the mayor?
Right, right. Yeah. And like at that time, it was like, people didn't like climate change just wasn't really talked about, at least where I was
Mm-hmm.
living. It was like if you're like listening to NPR on your drive home, it was like if they said climate change, you're like, oh, what? They're talking about it. Yes. Like
Yeah.
it was just like something that you didn't hear that much of. And so, yeah, I remember a funny story is like, I remember, and I talked about Bill McKibben as being like someone that I really looked up to. And like, we kind of modeled a lot of our actions after what 350 was up to. But I remember we were planning like this march. I think it was like a climate march that was like a local climate march. And someone was like, well, what if we got Bill McKibben to come? And I was like, okay, well, I'll just like try to hit him up. And so I just like Googled Bill McKibben's email, and it was like Bill McKibben at yahoo.com like popped up, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, there it is. And I emailed it. I emailed it and it was like, hey, we're doing this march. Would
You
you
want to
ever
come?
consider speak? And like, God bless him. He emailed me back and was like, hey, like I am so like thankful that you emailed. I'm so happy to hear about the really important work. He like validated the work that we were doing because we're such like little small fish trying to like make a difference. And he's like, I can't come, but I'll like, do you want me to like Skype into your meeting? So we're like, it's funny because it's like Skype, like no one uses Skype anymore, but
No,
we're
but that
like,
was the OG. That was it.
yeah, OG. And so so we like got like a laptop and Skyped in Bill McKibben to like, 15 punks talking about climate change. And he was like so sweet and gracious. And
Wow.
but yeah, like to me that um kind of recognition of like in a movement, it can't all just be about like the power players and the gatekeepers. It's like it's got to be inclusive, and it's like those little things of leaders that take time to do that are that's so important, and it really kind of like gave us so much spirit and energy to keep going.
Yeah, he was your activation person, you know? And
Yeah,
then he Skypes in.
yeah, yeah.
I are there any like hard lessons that you remember from that era that you're like, I'll never do that again. I'll never have that in my organizing toolkit, or I regret that, or I wish that we didn't do it that way, or I wish we did it a different way.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. It's like a lot of trial and error, right? And like, you know, I play music too. And so like I've booked shows and played shows where like it's a fantastic turnout, and then like sometimes there's like barely anyone there. And so it's like, a learning thing. The same applies for like any endeavor, whether it's like organizing. It's like you have to like learn from your lessons. And it like I guess what I would say is like over time, a central piece, as I was mentioning earlier, was like having fun and creating community. And then, if you are kind of like just talking about climate doom and like kind of
How
pouring
scary it
over,
is.
yeah, like I don't know, I think some people kind of ended up getting bummed.
Yeah,
Um,
it's bumming.
and
It's like a bum
and
issue.
yeah, yeah, and so like some of the fun was kind of like stripped out. I had like friends being like, look, I don't have the energy for this right now. And so, that's a big lesson is like, okay, we're all humans, and especially now, it's like with social, I mean like with social media, like I use Instagram. I'm not on TikTok or anything, but it's like, um, holy cow, like we take in a lot of information, and it's like a lot, and I wouldn't say all, but a lot of this stuff's important, and a lot of this is like people's lives, and a lot of things that are going on deserve attention and action, but it's a lot to take. So yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this other than like um we can only take so much as humans, and so we have to take care of each other, and like we have to like provide space, create space for joy, fun, community, um, enjoying the beach, enjoying the river, like
Yeah.
doing art, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's really so important because it's like this can't only be it, even though the science behind it demands that, like, hey, we've really got to get this going, you know?
Yeah, you got to sustain people, and that could look like having your community meeting at the beach instead, remembering that you're outside. I just really want to take a second on what you said about we are seeing so many things on our digital feeds, and we weren't really designed to consume this amount of information. And so it's so difficult to, especially when you're an empath or you've dedicated your life to so many of these issues and you see the connection between climate and social justice and all these other
Hmm. Totally.
issues. I'm really grappling this year with, oh my gosh, we have humanitarian crises, we
Hmm.
have human rights crises, and I'm talking about the ocean climate crises
Yeah.
and how people are deeply suffering and dying, and I'm talking about like nature, and I've been sitting with recently like, but that's what my expertise is. And so that I want to show up because this is the lane that I chose and I'm most qualified to speak in this lane, or I have the most nuance to speak in this lane. How do you handle, as someone who works at the intersection of ocean climate and social issues, working across many issues or just one?
Yeah. Well, I totally can relate to that. I'll also say that I don't have the perfect answer to that.
I know.
It's really tough. It can be really tough, right? And I remember like, when I was working for Oceana, at the time we had a new campaign, our plastics campaign, and our field team was engaging with it. And we were working to get like local policies, plastic policies passed.
Yeah.
So like bans on straws and bags and polystyrene foam and all this other stuff, and like working with businesses on plastic in spaces to reduce that, right? But like at the same time, it was like 2020, like we had COVID and we had like the Black Lives Matter movement was like fully going on, and like all this like national reckoning with a ton of different stuff was happening. And so I really felt it in that moment. Was like, wow, I'm like working on this straw ban, and there's like these massive, massive movements and issues that are like rightfully so taking up a lot of the space. How do I navigate that? And that was really tough. A really tough like professional time because you had that same dilemma. But, I think it's different because it's like it's also my job, so I have to do that. I have to kind of like, but also have like emotional intelligence. Like, what is like, use your emotional intelligence to see like what's appropriate in this moment or this
Right.
ask. Because a lot of people were suffering at that time. And so that still persists. I mean, that still exists today. That's always, I think, going to be a thing. That's where like there are important, super valuable things. Pe Especially you mentioned like being an empath or being a caring person, whether that's like people or nature, the ocean. But it's like we all, at the end of the day, we all do rely on a healthy ocean. Like, so, you know, we have to, it's important. It's like, you, you can't not have that. And so we have to kind of be able to be smart and figure out how to work on different things at the same time, and then also stay focused because if we work on too much and spread ourselves too thin and then like are in spaces that we don't have any business being in or don't really know anything about, then like we're also, missing out on getting things accomplished to help people in the
Yeah.
planet too. Because, like for me, it's like I'm working towards protecting the ocean and people. And
Hmm.
I care about a lot of different things, but I can't work on professionally, or at least at my job, like mountain stuff
Yeah. Yeah.
or like professionally like other things. So
Yeah.
um yeah, it's tough. It's tough mentally to kind of do because we're caring people, right?
Hmm.
And we want to see a better world. But I think that's a good spirit to have, is like we all kind of have to share in that.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And you can choose, maybe you choose a lane professionally, but you can still, like you said, you're like, I'm engaged on local issues no matter what, even though maybe my
Yeah,
professional lane doesn't have that under its like purview. But
yeah, yeah,
I also think that time for me was when I just that was one of my aha moments in my life. I just quit my job and started FutureSwell, and I didn't know what it was going to be, but
yeah,
I knew the power of social media through that.
yeah,
Um, I think I had watched it build over a few years as social media really took off, but that moment I was like, oh my gosh,
yeah,
we can activate the planet digitally. And
yeah,
at the same time, a handful of years before, there was, the plastic straw video with sea turtles that just caused a sweeping wave of local legislation thanks to people like you. And I was like, oh, is it really videos?
yeah,
Is that really it? And I don't know. I think there's ways to connect the dots for those of us that really do want to work on many issues, but that we do maybe need to find a couple or one area of expertise.
yeah, for sure. And like my wife would agree with that too,
Mm-hmm.
because like as an individual, I could take on a lot of different stuff and like really take that on into my being. And get asked to do a lot of different things. And it's like over the years I've gotten better about like graciously saying no, or like I can't help to that extent, but here's what I can do. Um, and I kind of have a pretty good, it's not perfect, like internal barometer of like I'm taking on too much, like between work and then all the personal stuff.
Yeah.
And you want to make space for your well-being. Like you want to make space for art and community and fun and family and things like that. Because like if we're gonna be in this thing for the long haul, you have to be as well as you can. So yeah, that's been like an ongoing lesson that I still grapple with, like especially when it comes to social media. Some people are more disciplined, but like I can really get stuck in and
Me
just
too.
like
Yeah, me
it just
too.
be like kind of a vortex. And then I'm in this place that, it's like it's a hard place. And so like I will take intermittent breaks. Sometimes I feel guilty for taking like a an
No.
Instagram break because it's like, oh, I'm not in the know about everything and I feel bad about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have to, or else I'm just not gonna make it.
You gotta. We're like the first generations to be handling all this, like this amount. Um,
Hmm.
so moving to kind of where you are now, you work for Oceana,
Hmm.
one of the biggest ocean impact organizations in the world. Oceana focuses on policy for folks that don't have not heard of Oceana before, but um, talk to me a little bit. I know you shared at the beginning what your role is, but kind of what Oceana does, maybe how you got your job there, and
Yeah,
what you work on now in 2025.
yeah, sure. Well, as I mentioned, like when I graduated college, it was like the job market was terrible, and I really
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed where I wanted to be, and we were doing cool stuff. So, really, I mean, the most important thing to me was like to have freedom and work and be able to organize and do art. And like for me, that's me play music in a band. And so I work for like an awesome local nursery and landscaping business, and I was like a landscaper for a long time, maybe like 7 years, and really loved it. Like I love plants, I love interacting with people. I didn't make that much money, but like the cost of living at that time was really affordable. I don't think I'd be able to do it now, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But like that's what I was doing, and I really did not ever think that like organizing or working for a non like a environmental group was ever even an option. Like it just didn't even like seem like a thing that could happen.
Wow.
Um, and so anyways, like one of the things that popped up, was like at that time, President Obama proposed opening up the Atlantic to offshore drilling and seismic air gun blasting. We're like, oh no, what are you doing, dude? You
Yeah.
cannot do that. So of course, like my friends and I all started organizing around that and like activating our community in a big way. And we were planning this big activation, like this giant, we had like, it was called like the March for Ocean Justice or something like that. And we were going to march over the bridge and like go to City Hall. And we had like the mayor and other mayors come and they were all going to like we did this big presser and there was a ton of people there. It was a really great turnout and Oceana was a part of that. And like they asked if they could be a part of that. And so we're like, yeah, sure. So anyways, so like the other lessons learned too was like Oceana showed up and had a bunch of t-shirts and gave out all this signage and stuff that was all Oceana branded. And we're like, dude, what the heck?
Like, go
So like
brand our event.
yeah. Yeah. So but anyways, we got over that.
Yeah.
It ended up being a really impactful event and City of St. Augustine and St. Johns County and all the other municipalities in the area ended up passing resolutions and that became a blueprint for like
Oh,
this grassroots movement of like documenting opposition all over Florida. Like this is how communities can like if we have a map, we can put a dot at all these cities that are passing resolutions. So that just like spread like wildfire. Anyways, it was a really successful kind of organizing event. And long story short, Obama did not end up drilling in the ocean in the Atlantic, and the seismic permits that were on offer got denied through a court case, and so we had won that campaign. It was like, oh, sick! This is great. Well done, everybody. And then anyways, after that, uh, a year later, President Trump was elected, and like, so at that moment, that we kind of all knew that like, okay, everything that we've like worked for is probably on the chopping block and it's going to be undone. So that was like, okay, what does this mean for me? And then at that time, someone from Oceana called me and was like, hey, we're going to like expand our field team. It was really good working with you in Florida. It's not going to be in Northeast Florida. It's down in Tampa Bay, but you should apply. And I
wow.
was like, huh. I didn't know that was a thing. Okay, let me think about that. So I ended up applying and getting the job and moving to St. Pete and then starting this journey with Oceana. And so, I was like, you know, I don't have like a science background. I didn't have a professional organizing background. So I really dealt with a lot of like imposter syndrome, then like a lot of fake it till you make it. And but just like a real commitment to the cause and a real commitment to learning as much as I could and then my whole kind of ethos behind everything is just like just develop solid relationships and then like everything else will follow. And so yeah, it's been really truly like a great experience. That's why I'm still here like 8 years later. So
Yeah. Y-
yeah.
You saying just develop solid relationships and everything else will follow has been truly like the guiding principle of every piece of like success or impact I've ever had in my career. Like
Yeah.
when I realized that I was going to be working with my friends, like on these campaigns, it just it kind of blew up everything I ever thought about like a professional career. And it's
Hmm.
been so much more joyful and so much more impactful since. Hearing that, Oceana worked with you originally and then sought you out because of the good work you were always doing also kind of reiterates like just keep following what you want to do and
Hmm.
bring people along with you and let them see who you are and how you're showing up and then prioritize those relationships because at the end of the day you guys caused like a really successful resolution campaign at the local level that was exactly what the organization was also trying to do. um,
Yeah.
I think that it can also be a little overwhelming for young folks listening or entering the space to see what does a livable job, like a livable wage, look like in this movement, especially right now.
Yeah.
And because you entered the workforce around the recession, I think that that might be similar to what we see ahead of us. And it's good to hear that maybe maybe you didn't start right away, but that you found your way there regardless.
Yeah, I think it's like it's tough, like it's tough being in that situation when you're looking to kind of like enter the workforce. And like
Hmm.
for me, like I opted for community and then like I'll figure it out later. I don't know if that's the best piece of advice. It's just what I did. And in the meantime, it was like, I'm just gonna create stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna like do good stuff. And then I know if I put my energy into cool things that are getting people excited about that like have meaning and impact, like good things will come. Like I remember saying that to myself. Um, and and like I could work in like our field team, which is like campaigners and organizers, and like so many um of the people that we've hired, there's a really big diversity of like different backgrounds. It's not like,
Yeah.
oh, I got a science degree and then,
No.
I'm a policy expert. It's like, I don't know, like people that kind of did that kind of similar thing where they're just out there creating relationships and creating different things, in their own community. So I know that's kind of like what I have an eye on. And I think it's important, like as like hiring managers, like especially now, I mean, like we look at NOAA, it's like a third of the workforce at NOAA has been laid off. And
Right.
so like when you look at when there's a job posting, there's lots of super brilliant people looking for work. But still, like from my perspective, I try to have some kind of lens that also incorporates like lived experience. Like maybe this person's a working class person that's organizing on the side, but is like super connected or like comes from a fishing family or something like that. And so like they may not have a doctorate but I don't need a doctorate. I need someone that's like just like go-getter and just like wants to get at it. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I don't know. It's an interesting time. And there are parallels, like you said, between then and now.
Hmm.
It's not the same, but
When you think back on all of the work you've accomplished throughout your life, what are some things that you feel like the ocean climate movement needs right now?
yeah. Um, well, I think like a couple things. I think like investment on the philanthropic side, like the foundations and charitable giving, like I really think like investment into campaigners and organizers, um, and kind of building out that where people can like meet their communities where they're at and on-ramp them and into the movement that makes sense to the people they're communicating with. Um, to have that kind of cultural and emotional kind of intelligence. I think that's where, like, if you want to create a movement, from that kind of organizational side, um, that investment needs to keep happening and not to just like larger groups like Oceana, but some of like the incredible organizing for small and kind of regional orgs
Yeah.
too. Like that money needs to get there because they're doing awesome stuff. So I think that's important. I think we talked about leaders, like m movements need leaders, and so um, you know, I don't know how to create leaders, and that's a kind of weird thing, but it's like all the successful movements, typically have charismatic leaders, and so for me, that was Bill McKibben, and I know like um, Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson is like that person for a lot of people.
Yeah.
A big admirer myself. Those types of figures, like we need to kind of like really encourage that in new leadership too. Um, and then, it's like the Trump administration and a lot of companies and corporations are basically like, okay, well, I think we're done with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think that's a not the way forward.
No.
I think having a more diverse and equitable and inclusive movement is important. And that's not just like race and gender. That's like I was mentioning before, like working class people are welcome too. And like, I really,
Age.
yeah, age, totally.
Yeah.
You name it. It's like, how can we reflect? people's experience if it's like homogenistic in our own organizations. We can't. Um, and it's just not even the strategic thing to do. It's like there's so many different things about it. Um, and yeah, I think like for Oceana, I will just say like our CEO, Jim Simon, that was the one thing I really appreciated was like multiple times since the election, he's reiterated like, we're not gonna be like moving away from this. This is still something that organizationally we're committed to. And it's like definitely not perfect, but they're investing money, time, effort. And then all that power totally comes from our staff too that are committed to that. So I think that's also important. Don't want to see that go away.
No.
Um, and then there's so many unknowns that are coming our way, like in our worlds. So many new tools that are going to be at our disposal. I don't even know what that means. I don't,
Me
I don't
neither.
know. I don't know what it's all going to look like. But yeah, we got to take care of each other and try to like foster community, and wellness and longevity, um, and fun in the midst of like really hard, troubling times. So
Yeah.
as best we can.
Yeah, as best we can. I think it's always important to ask that question because then people can go in and fill in those things you say that resonate with them. And that's really what we need. I really
Yeah.
appreciate on the campaigning and organizing side how much diversity of backgrounds there are in the leaders. I recently joined Capitol Hill Ocean Week, and they were just saying, "Oh, you want to work in policy? You don't need a PhD. You don't even need a. You don't need any of these requirements. You just need to learn, really, mostly through trial and error and from other people's lessons. And once, like all of it's applied, and once you
Yeah.
have it, then you just replicate those campaigns."
Yeah. Yeah. I think I mean, I think higher ed's awesome. And I like
Hmm.
have so much respect for my colleagues that have advanced degrees and yeah, they're brilliant. We need them. We need people
Right.
to do that. But also too, um, like you said before, it's like not always necessary. It's like just getting your hands dirty and kind of getting involved, whether that's like a job or not, or creating something on your own or
Hmm.
doing stuff that's non-paid, which sucks sometimes, but is part of it. Yeah, it's like relationships and like just you go through an experience on one thing and you know you either win or lose or learn a bunch of lessons and then you do the next thing and then you do the next thing and
Hmm.
then after a while that just kind of builds up to this kind of catalog and then you're a really knowledgeable person like you've done some stuff
Yeah.
and like you've seen some things and you've learned lessons so yeah I think that's so true.
Um, I do want to ask this because I think we have a range of listeners in different stages of life. So I know you have a family, you have a child, and I wanted to ask if you feel comfortable, like how that resolve or how that experience has really helped you, or how being a father has connected to your movement building and kind of what it did in a way of shaping you, and what it means to maybe folks listening that are like, I do want to be parents, and I even me right now, I'm like, what will happen with my impact work? Will it become less of a priority? And I just we don't often get to have this discussion on this show, and so
Yeah.
um, yeah, how has that impacted you and shaped you?
Yeah, like no, in the most insane way. Like because it is like the most rewarding and amazing thing, and it like changes your life, and it kind of rearranges like you're not at the top of everything, like this other person is. Um, and yeah, so that's a big change just in general, but like with that in mind, it's like, I personally have to take on like a lot of different emotions or feelings or like get really kind of bummed about either the state of things and sometimes so I've kind of had to learn to kind of like how to put that to the side to like show up for my kid.
Yeah.
That's like really important. Like, and then also like, you're also I'm lucky enough to have a really awesome wife too. And so like we're raising this person. Um, and so it's also really rewarding and fun to kind of like, I mean, you have to like, I don't know, everyone's different in their parenting style, but it's like, yeah, I want to teach them about like the ocean and teach them about like how to be a good steward of the place and teach them about science and all this other stuff. But it is so funny to kind of like hear the stuff that they say. Like about plastic. It's like it's like I'm not like a plastic perfectionist. It's impossible for us all to be plastic
Of
perfect.
course, of course.
But it's like if I somehow I have some plastic, like Dad,
What are you doing?
what are you doing? I'm like, I know, buddy, but it's I didn't have a choice here.
You're like, now
Or
let me teach you about the political influence of the petrochemical lobbyists.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
you're
we
like
take it. She's like a Padawan learner, and like so we take it one stage at a time. But yeah, it's like I don't know. It's so interesting because she's really curious about the work, and like she saw this photo of like of a sea turtle necropsy and this balloon coming out of the turtle's rectum. It's really kind of like a graphic photo. But I was like going through this slide deck and she just walked in and saw it. She's like, "Oh, what's that?" I'm like, "Well, it's a turtle," and told her about balloons. And we were doing a balloon campaign in Florida to like pass a bill that would like prohibit the intentional release of balloons. That was like a 2-year campaign. And we ended up winning. But like to have Camellia along, she's just always like, "Yeah, that turtle, like the butt coming out of its butt." And and just like her engagement with it was like comical and sweet. And I think that the thing that I love is just like seeing her like actually care um about the natural world and actually have like a genuine connection to it.
Yeah.
And as a dad, it's like you know, getting her out into natural spaces is a part of that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's all the same
it's
stuff. It's like, oh, you got to have time to play in nature and you got to have time to work in defense of it,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, she loves it and she's like so proud of that too.
Yeah.
Like of like because she lets me know, which is so sweet. Like she's proud of that, the work that I do. So
Yeah.
I think that's an extra kind of like I don't care what anyone else thinks. My kid got me the thumbs up approval, so I feel good about that.
Feel great. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have a friend here who his kids are like adolescent age. And so they're coming on with him to he works more in the climate and sovereignty space here in Hawaii. And his kids are they come to the protests. And
Yeah.
the oldest one is started speaking at them.
Oh
And
yeah.
to watch that, I
Yeah.
feel like, oh my gosh, you without putting pressure or expectation at all on your kids, just by living your life, you have the potential to like make it generational impact work.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. Yeah. It's true. It's true. And it's like as much as we can, it's like our own kids are important, but just like children in general.
Mm-hmm.
Like going to Camelia's class and like doing this like right whale curriculum for them and like having her kind of sit there and she wants to be a part of it. And I don't know, it's just like finding time to kind of engage with young people as much as possible. It's not like a big thing that Oceana does, to be honest with you. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
like a huge part of my work. But something I wish I could have another clone of me that just dedicated. I wish I had a clone of me that worked for Oceana and could just like go and just do environmental education to kids because I always have so much fun doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I started my career in education outreach, ocean conservation outreach, and
cool.
whenever I have the opportunity to like, fill in a spot at a booth, I'm like I try to take it when I can, because it really, you leave and you're like, I think I moved these kids on this issue a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah.
It's like they're sponges, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely.
okay, we wrap up every episode with the same question for each guest. And the question is, if you could put a message, or I know you're an artist, so, or something else on a billboard for the most powerful people in the world to see and have to see, what would you put on your billboard?
Oh, oh man. Um,
I know.
Gosh, I wish I was like a marketing whiz. That would be cool. If I was like, oh, what could be like the most impactful thing?
We have people that do like direct sentences. We have people who are like this visual, but at the end of the
Yeah.
day, it feels like all of us against these most powerful people. So I just wonder, I always want to ask people what they'd put.
Oh, I don't know. I think it would be like, um, it would be like a ton of people in this. It would be like a ton of people together, like just like all these different people. And it would say like, we still have power and we're going to use it.
Mm-hmm.
So something like that. Because
Yeah.
I don't feel like, um, necessarily they're going to be moved by like a picture of a whale or something, or
No.
something hopeful. I think what is so important is for us to realize like how much power we have as people, especially like collective, and when we create movements and stuff. And so we still have power, all of us. And yeah, we
And
should
we're going
use
to
it.
use it.
We're going to use it.
We're going
So
to
to
use it.
push back.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we still are right now. I've never felt more, yeah, when a few years ago, under the different investment in climate solutions, I felt like we were progressing and progressing and progressing. And now we're in this defense
Yeah.
mode. But I'm learning a lot in the defense mode. I'm
Yeah.
learning a lot about how to stop things that you talked about, how you won the seismic blasting campaign under Obama. It's like, and that these skills, while they're not, where we want to be right now, it's the truth of where we are. And
Oh
we're going
yeah.
to be leaning on defense forever.
Yep.
So
You
better
know
to
it.
learn the tactics and strategies now.
Yep. It is you're totally right, spot on. Yep. We have to defend what we have right now.
Yeah,
And that is like not an easy thing to do. It's so much harder, it's so much easier to tear something apart and just like wreck it and blow it up than it is to build something.
I
And
know.
so like yeah, we have these institutions that we rely on as people, as Americans, as like people that rely on the ocean. They're really important. And it's like so much harder to put the puzzle back together. So we gotta keep it intact, and like do like try to prevent as much damage as possible to prevent that. So it's so important. It's not as flashy as like we protected like 10,000 square miles of ocean, or we have a new like marine monument, or like we have, you know, phased out of polystyrene foam forever. But it's like we should still, when we can, and when we do stop bad stuff from happening, or make it a lot less bad, then we still have to pause and be like stoked about that, because
Yeah,
it's like a part of the work right now.
yeah. It's half of it, it's half
Yeah.
of the work. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Hunter, for coming on
Yeah.
Sustainability in the Sea.
Absolutely. What a pleasure.
Mm.